Today is October 8th, 2024, and we are honored to be speaking with members of the Kanaky Delegation to the United Nations Fourth Committee on Decolonization. Today, we are joined by Boula Ludovi, the first Vice President, and Jerome Bouquet Elakaim, the International Law and Human Rights Environmental Attorney. Thank you guys for taking time from your busy schedules at the UN to come onto the show today, and welcome.
You're welcome.
So first, we want to ask you about the Kanaky, which is also known by its colonizer name as New Caledonia. As you may be aware, few people in the US are cognizant of the struggles of the Kanak people, let alone have heard of Kanaky or New Caledonia before. For those in the audience that may not be aware of the settler colonial history of Kanak, could you please provide some background for us?
So, New Caledonia is a French colony since the 19th century, precisely 1853 was the date of the when France took possession of this territory. Since that time, I mean, the Kanak people have been colonized, deprived of most of its traditional lands. During the 19th and early 20th century, there was a discriminatory status for the indigenous people of New Caledonia, and this until the Second World War, when the legal system started to change, but still the system was not respectful of all the human rights of the Kanak people. And in the 80s, the Kanak people started to claim its independence. And so there was a protestation movement that took place during the 80s, which was quite repressed by the French government at this time. There was several Kanaks independentist leaders that were killed, and the crisis was during quite a long time until the events of Houvea, where several, 19 Kanak were killed by the French military forces. This was, the moment where all the parties realized that it was better to negotiate. And at this time, so they started some negotiation about the future of New Caledonia and a possible process of self-determination that brought to the Matignon Agreement in 1988. With this agreement, a self-determination process was initiated, which was supposed to last 30 years. The second step was the signature of the Nouméa Agreement in 1998. This agreement created an autonomous status for the territory. Many competences were transferred from the French state to the local government of New Caledonia, and as well in this Nouméa Agreement, the rights of the Kanak indigenous people were guaranteed. There was a special chamber of the local parliament which was created to represent the traditional customary authorities, which is the Customary Senate. Mr. Boula is one of the senators of this institution. As well, the Nouméa Agreement was recognizing the right of the Kanak people to have their own civil status concerning weddings, adoption, all the things about civil rights. And the Nouméa Agreement recognized as well the existence of customary land and initiated as well a process of retrocession of the land that were confiscated during the colonial times. And the third important point in the Nouméa Agreement is that this time a real process of self-determination was organized in order to see the territory of New Caledonia access to full sovereignty. And in the Nouméa Agreement, 3 referendums were planned in order to ask the local population, the Caledonian population, if its will is to be independent or not. At this time, the free consultation took place. The last referendum took place in 2021, at a moment where the territory was facing the COVID pandemic. This pandemic, this COVID, had a real impact on the Kanak population. Like for many indigenous people in the world, there was a real trauma connected to this disease, and so the Kanak people asked for this third referendum to be reported to a future time after, at the moment where the pandemic would be under control. But the French government refused. That led to the boycott of this consultation by the Kanak people. And I would say the tension started at this moment between the Kanak people and the French authorities. That's what I can say about, the history of this territory.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, Boula Ludovi is the first vice president of the Customary Senate of Kanaky.
Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. So in this past May, French settler colonists, could you please give us some background into what specifically led into the rebellion and an update on the status of the electoral reforms?
So as I was telling you, the condition of the third referendum first brought some tensions. But at this time, there was still a process which was possible under the Nouméa Agreement, because the Nouméa Agreement specified that if the result is still to stay connected with France after this third referendum, all the parties should meet to figure in which way the self-determination process will go on. In the Nouméa Agreement, the self-determination process was considered as something irreversible. There was no possible way back. But the French government, after this third referendum, had a total different view, and he finally started to challenge its commitments under the Nouméa Agreement. The French government considered that as far as the third referendum didn't lead to independence, the choice of the Caledonian people was to stay in France, to stay connected with France. And from that point, the French government started to cancel all the dispositions of the Nouméa Agreement, including the recognition of the Kanak indigenous people in the Nouméa Agreement, and all the rights that were granted to the Kanak people as an indigenous people in this agreement. And at the end of 2023, the French government initiated a new process in order to negotiate a new political agreement, which was supposed to replace the Nouméa Agreement. And in this draft document that was put on the table by the French government, all the disposition concerning the rights of the Kanak has disappeared. The French government just planned to keep an autonomy status for the territory with a local government and a local parliament, But all the former disposition of the Nouméa Agreement concerning, for example, the existence of the Customary Senate, the recognition of the traditional Kanak authorities, the recognition of the customary law, all this has disappeared. And the French system, the French government just wanted New Caledonia to be some kind of extension of the French metropolitan territory with no special rights granted to the Kanak people.
Je peux rajouter, c'est aussi le fait aussi que, en fait, même avant le 13 mai, le système, il allait mal. Dans le sens où on peut donner des exemples comme 98% des prisonniers sont des Kanaky. Le nombre de cadres, il n'y a pas beaucoup. Sur les 20 ans, il n'y a pas eu de... Il y a peut-être juste un docteur, deux docteurs, mais sans plus. Et le nombre de mineurs qui arrêtent l'école, c'est 200, je crois, 200 jeunes de 16 ans, 18 ans qui quittent l'école.
So Senator Boula said that apart from the legal and institutional issue, one of the reasons of the crisis is that the thing also were wrong concerning the social situation of the Kanak people. For example, he said that in the prisons in New Caledonia, you have 99% of the prisoners who are Kanak, while the Kanak population of New Caledonia only represent 44% of the population. As well, you have almost no young Kanak which are graduated. They have no way to access to universities. You have no Kanaks. Not a lot of Kanak in the administration, at important places in the different companies at the local level. So plenty of issues concerning the social situation of the Kanak population, with as well a lot of poverty, a lot of suicides, and so on.
Thank you for that. Could you say more about the level of repression and violence used against the Kanak people by the French this past May?
Yeah, of course. So first thing, when the crisis started, it started when the French government decided to pass constitutional reform concerning the electoral rules in order to allow the people who came recently from metropole, from France to New Caledonia to vote concerning the local election. So when this decision was taken and when this draft constitutional reform was adopted by the French Parliament, you had a lot of demonstrations that were already taking place in New Caledonia, but those demonstrations were pacific. When this draft reform was passed by the Parliament, there was such a despair in the population that the situation came out of control, and the pacific demonstration started to be more violent. And so concerning the level of repression, you have to know that at this moment, you have something around 7,000 soldiers and policemen on the Caledonian territory. This is 1/3 of the French capacity in terms of public order. We have something like 23,000 soldiers and policemen in charge of public order. So it's 1/3 of the French capacity, which is in New Caledonia. And concerning the level of repression, already 13 Kanaks were killed. 9 were killed by the police and military forces. we are talking about executions because the condition in which those people were killed were brought to the attention of the United Nations bodies concerning human rights. Plenty of people were injured as well. We don't have the real number of the people who were injured. It's the minimum. I think it's in June there was already 3,050 Kanaky were injured because of the action of the military forces. At this day, we don't have the data because it's very hard to have access to this information. We only have the data from the French state concerning the people who were arrested. And you should know that at this day, 3,000 Kanaky were arrested, which is 3% of the Melanesian population. Because all this has to be put in connection with the local population. You only have 250,000 inhabitants in New Caledonia. So when we are talking about 3,000 of people arrested, it's really a lot. Est-ce que tu as autre chose à dire concernant le niveau des violences?
Je pense que le niveau de violence, il y a trop d'injustice, dans le sens où il y a certaines personnes qui sortent juste le drapeau Kanaky, mais qui sont arrêtées. Tandis que d'autres personnes qui, avec le drapeau français, ben, ils peuvent se balader en ville.
Senator Boula says that there is really a lot of injustice in the way the police operations are conducted. For example, if you are a Kanaky and if you are going around with a Kanaky flag, you can be arrested. And many people were arrested and put in custody just because they were carrying a Kanaky flag.
Et sans compter dans les émeutes, j'appelle ça des QG. C'est là où, juste après le 13 mai, c'est là où la population se retrouvait pour manger. Il faut savoir que la population, ils avaient faim et il fallait qu'ils s'organisent. Et du coup, le problème, c'est que les forces de l'ordre, ils viennent, mais enlèvent leur QG. Tandis que les barrages et les barrières de ceux d'en face, c'est en plein milieu de la route, c'est carrément des murs. Mais les forces de l'ordre, ils font rien.
As well, Senator Boula said that during this crisis, there was a big issue of food supply. So the population was starving, and so the Kanaky people organized themselves, and they recreated some camps where the population could be provided with food and supply in order just to survive. And what happened is that the police forces systematically destroyed those campments. But in the same time, during these events, some settlers, militias were created, armed militias were created, and they also started some blockage on some areas in Nouméa, for example. But the police forces never went against those militias. So there is a big discrimination between the Kanaky people on one side, and on the other side, the settlers, the white settlers militias, which were created, and the people were never arrested by the French police, while they are carrying weapons, which is totally forbidden in France. And for example, you should know that among the Kanaky who were killed, 3 Kanaky were killed by those settlers militias.
Thank you for that. And we applaud the resilience of the Kanaky people and mourn their losses. Could you explain to our audience why France has an interest in strengthening its presence in Kanaky?
I think it's very simple. First, it's it's the strategic place in the Pacific Ocean, but it's also very rich territory with 25% of the world nickel resource. You also have an important biodiversity on the Kanaky territory, and you also have mineral and natural resources in the exclusive economical zone. All around New Caledonia in the marine spaces which are connected to this territory. So it's a very rich territory.
Qui lui permet d'être le deuxième pays après les États-Unis sur le nombre de kilomètres
And so thanks to this, as said Senator Boula, thanks to this territory and as well French Polynesia, France is still the second country in terms of marine surfaces after the USA in the Pacific.
Thank you. So currently you are in New York City as part of a delegation to the United Nations Fourth Committee on Decolonization. Could you please tell us about the delegation to the UN and what your delegation hopes to achieve?
Quelle est la position? Pourquoi est-ce qu'on est là? Tu veux que je réponde? In fact, it's very simple. In the Numa Agreement, you have an Article 5, which is stating that the process of self-determination is a process with no way back. And so we are there at the Fourth Committee in order to push the process on, because that was the commitment of the French state when the French government at this time in 1998 signed the Numa Agreement. There was a commitment to bring New Caledonia to self-determination, and France has just to respect its commitment and the agreement that was signed.
Could you tell us about what some of the challenges your delegation faced?
We mostly pointed out the disposition of the Numa Agreement and the different international law standards that are concerning self-determination, and those standards are binding. That's what we argue before the committee.
Thank you. So as sort of overlapping question is the fact that in recent years, we've been seeing a crisis of Western imperialism and French imperialism in particular, whereby the French have been booted from several countries in the Sahel region of Africa, for example. We have seen protests in the so-called French Caribbean, Martinique, Guadeloupe, and even the uprising in Haiti could be considered part of this crisis of French imperialism. Do you see the uprising in Kanaky as also part of this trend?
Je réponds si est-ce qu'il y a une connexion entre le mouvement de décolonisation, enfin les protestations en Nouvelle-Calédonie et ce qui s'est passé dans d'autres anciennes colonies françaises. Tu veux que je réponde? Yeah, for sure. There is a total and direct connection between the situation of New Caledonia and the situation of former French colonies. And there is as well a connection between what is happening now in New Caledonia and the protests which are now rising as well in the Caribbean, and especially in Guadeloupe and Martinique, and maybe also soon in French Guiana. I think the main issue is that the French doctrine has never evolved since the French Revolution. It's a very centralist conception of the state, and with a legal background which only recognizes individuals in the French Republic. In the French Republic, you only have one people, it's the French people, with its diversity, but still it's the French people, and you only have citizens. And so, I mean, the legal doctrine of the French state is very reluctant to recognize minorities and indigenous people. And the French state never evolved in this doctrine. That's why the decolonization process in all the former French colonies, most of the time was violent. In Algeria, in Indochina, that was not the same in the British colonies, for example. The decolonization process was softer in the British colonies, and in many cases, Great Britain managed to keep peaceful relations with former colonies and strong economical ties. That's not the case of the French state. That's really sorry, because the Senate, for example, concerning New Caledonia, since many years, the Customary Senate is trying to push legal reforms in order to improve a system with more recognition of legal pluralism, a system giving much place to the Kanaky indigenous people. But each time the door was closed by the French government, and whatever the political tendency of the government, it's not a question of political tendency of this government or another one. It's really a state doctrine which is bringing to such closed and difficult situations.
Je peux rajouter, il y a aussi des similitudes sur la vie chère dans les Outre-mer. Les prix sont tellement exorbitants. Et l'inégalité. Il y a les riches, il y a un gros fossé entre ceux qui prennent le monopole et la population.
And Mr. Boula said that there is another problem is still the cost of life in the French overseas territories, and as well poverty, because you have strong inequalities in the societies in New Caledonia, but as well in the Caribbean. That's why also we can still talk about a colonial system, because at the end, the way France is managing its overseas territories is just a colonial way, which is not different than the way France was managing its colony in the 19th century.
Thank you for those answers. Could you say more about whether or not the Kanak people feel connected to the other current and former French colonies that are struggling against French and Western imperialism?
De quelle manière est-ce qu'on est connecté aux autres territoires d'outre-mer dans la défense du processus de décolonisation? Yeah, it's very easy to respond. In fact, there is a connection and there is a solidarity among the different people of all the French overseas territories. Yesterday, during the meeting at the Fourth Commission, there was also a big delegation from French Polynesia. And concerning the examination of the situation of New Caledonia, the Kanaky Delegation was supported by the deputy of French Guiana, which was there yesterday, and as well there was a representative of the Guadeloupe who made the trip to New York to support the petition of the Kanaky people before the Fourth Committee. So there is a solidarity among the indigenous people of all the overseas territories controlled by France, but also of the Creole population of the Caribbean, and especially from Martinique, Guadeloupe, and Guyana.
Et par aussi, j'en rajoute, par aussi les réseaux sociaux, où on a vu que la France essayait de bloquer les informations. À un moment donné, par exemple, TikTok a été interdit en France, en Nouvelle-Calédonie, mais par l'intermédiaire des confrères, l'information a pu être reliée dans les réseaux sociaux.
And Mr. Boula said as well that this cooperation between the populations of the French overseas territories is also going through the social networks. For example, you should know that during the crisis in New Caledonia last May and June, the French government forbade the TikTok network. So the Kanak people were unable to communicate through this social media, but they managed to create links with people outside in the other overseas territories, and so the information was able to circulate in spite of the interdiction of TikTok in New Caledonia.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing. How can our audience support your delegation for decolonization of Kanaky and support the Kanak people in their struggle for liberation and independence?
Comment est-ce que leur audience peut soutenir le combat du peuple kanak pour l'indépendance? Les gens qui nous écoutent.
Et déjà, le fait de mettre une pression à l'État français, cela déjà change déjà le rapport, le rapport de force. Et ce processus-là va permettre aussi d'éviter les bavures et les violences faites au peuple autochtone. Et par rapport
Senator Boula said that the simple fact that the situation of New Caledonia is dealt by the media enables maybe to put some kind of pressure on the French government in order that all the the military treatment of this crisis could stop. Mr. Boula thinks that there will be less people injured, maybe less violence from the police if the whole world knows about the situation of the Kanak people and of the Caledonian territory.
Et aussi, je vais rajouter aussi que nous, au niveau, par rapport le déplacement qu'on a fait ici en New York, a été financé par le PCC. On remercie. Le PCC. Quoi? Ah oui, la conférence des églises du Pacifique.
C'est pas la question. C'est comment les médias peuvent.
Non, ce que je veux dire, c'est que moyennement, on n'a pas de budget, on a des problèmes financiers. Du coup, on demande de l'aide aux ONG, aux associations qui peuvent nous aider.
Yeah, and the mediatization of the struggle of the Kanak people can also help them to get some support. Because, for example, you should know that the Customary Senate, which is an official institution of the French Republic, has its budget cut since the beginning of the crisis. And so, for example, when the Kanaky Delegation went to Geneva to meet the UN body, their plane tickets were bought by the Maori from New Zealand. And now they are able to be here in New York because the Council of the Pacific Churches agreed to pay their plane tickets. So the mediatization can bring as well some support. And as for me, I think as well that the fact that your media, for example, but also other medias talk about New Caledonia, it's a way as well to show the reality of this territory, and to let people know what's happening, and also to show that the struggle of the Kanak people is a struggle for truth and also for justice. And that's something important because the information that sometimes went out of these territories shows picture of violence, of riots, but the reality is really that the Kanak people was marginalized, and that its rights were not respected anymore by the French government. And that's important to know. It's really an issue of human rights and of justice.
Thank you. Those are all the questions we had prepared today. Is there anything else you would like to say in closing?
Qu'est-ce que tu voudrais dire pour terminer?
Déjà que, ouais, je voulais dire que ouais, il faut que la France respecte ses engagements, les engagements de l'accord de Nouméa, et que la population, j'ai pas les mots. C'est dur, et moi j'aimerais que vous, par rapport à votre journal, de faire connaître notre situation dans le monde.
Mr. Boula said that as a conclusion, he really sent a call to the French state. Mr. Boula wants the French government to respect the agreement he was signing and to respect the rights of the Kanak indigenous people. He said it's very hard to talk about the situation. He can't find the word, and he wants to thank you to use your network in order to let the people know what's happening there.
We're honored to have both of you on today, and you both are welcome back anytime. Please reach out in that. So thank you once again, and we'll wrap up here.
Thank you.
We state these facts only to let you know that those of us who are revolutionary, Pan-Africanists, is not because we love revolution. It is historically determined, and we have no alternative but to follow history and to use history for the benefit of our people.